Hello guys, gals and non-binary pals, welcome back to Budget Brew with me, Lotus. Today, as the first one of the year of 2024, Happy New Year to everybody, we have Gavi Nest Warden, a bit of an old one, but I've been playing it recently and thought I'd try and get it under $20. So, Gavi Nest Warden is 2 blue, red, white for a legendary creature human shaman, 2/5. You may pay 0 for free, rather than the price of the normal cycling cost each turn. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, make a 2/2 red and white dinosaur cat creature token. Before we get into the deck, please consider subscribing. I'm trying to get to 500 this year for the end of 2024. Small little target, but it'd be great. And join the Discord. We'll be happy to chat, discuss new decks, and just have a great laugh. Also, we are affiliated with Pinfinity with their augmented reality pins and playmats, so use the code Lotus for an extra 20% off, and everything goes to support the channel. But let's start with mana fixing. It's not going to be so much as mana ramp, but everything will be fixing what we can get. So Angel of Ruins is 5 white white. It's when it enters the battlefield, we can exile 2 target artifacts or enchantments, but what we're really interested in is the plane cycling for 2 colourless, where we can discard this card and go get it for a plains and put it in our hand, so we're getting more mana for every single turn to drop a land. Eagles of the North is the new one from Lord of the Rings. Again, it has plane cycling. When it enters the battlefield though, creatures control get +1/+0 and gain first strike to end of turn. The Eternal Dragon, again, has plane cycling for 2. It's a 5/5 with flying that you can pay 3 white white and return from your graveyard to your hand. Activate only during your upkeep, but it is a way in the late game to keep getting basics out of your deck. Fluctuator is 2 mana for an artifact that says your cycling abilities cost 2 less to activate. So not is only our commander making it once per turn free, this will make most of them free as well. We have Marauding Brinefang. This one is a island cycler, so we can go get an island. Migratory Root is a basic land cycler, so we can get any of the lands that we need. Monstrosity of the Lake, another from Lord of the Rings. When it enters the battlefield though, we can pay 5 generic mana. If we do, we tap all creatures our opponents control and put a stun counter on each of them. So in the late game, if we want to swing through with some of those cat tokens, we can stun a lot of creatures. And then it has the island cycling. Oliphant from Lord of the Rings as well. 6/4 with trample. When it enters, creatures get +2/+0 and trample, but it mountain cycles for single. Rogrin Crystal is a mana rock that can cycle, so if we need the mana we can cast it, if we need the cycle we can cycle it. Ruin Grinder is Menace. When it dies, each player discards their hand and draws 7, so if we really need to fill up our hand we can play this and try and kill it. Otherwise, Mountain Cycling for 2. Sanctum Plowbeast is got plane cycling or island cycling, so we can choose what we need to go get. Seismic Monstrous Store from the new Ixalan set has mountain cycling, and when it's on the battlefield we can sack a land for 2 and a red to draw a card. Soaring Sandwing has plane cycling as well, and Timeless Dragon has plane cycling, but also we can eternalize it from the graveyard as well. We have card advantage more than card draw, so Abandoned Sarcophagus is a 3 mana artifact where we can cast spells that have a cycling ability from our graveyard. So we're not just throwing everything in the graveyard, we can physically cast them from there as well, as long as they have cycling. However, if anything with cycling hits the graveyard, it would be exiled instead, unless it was cycled. Boon of the Wishgiver can draw 4 cards or just cycle for 1. Hieroglyphic Illumination, it can draw us 2 cards or cycle for a blue. Lorien Revealed, it can draw us 3 cards, also has island cycling, so it can get us an island if we need it. Mental Journey draws 3 cards, all basic land cycles. New Perspectives is 5 and a blue for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, which is fantastic. As long as we have 7 or more cards in my hand, we may pay 0 rather than pay the cycling costs. And Reconnaissance Mission, 2 blue for an enchantment. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, we may draw a card. Plus that also cycles. Looking at removal, we have a Chroma's Vengeance. We can destroy all artifacts, creatures and enchantments, or just cycle it. Cast Out, it has Flash, another enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until Cast Out leaves the battlefield, or cycle it for a white. Clear is an instant for 1 and a white to destroy target enchantment, which also cycles for 2. Complicate, 2 and a blue, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3, or we can cycle it for 2 and a blue, and when we cycle it, we may counter target spell unless its controller pays 1. Countervailing Winds is a counter spell unless it pays 1 for each card in our graveyard, and it cycles for 2. Decree of Annihilation is a rough one, but there is a reason why this is in this deck. Not only does it cycle for 5 red, with our commander it cycles for 3. We don't want to cast it as its main ability to exile all artifacts, creatures and lands from the battlefield, and all graveyards and all cards from hands. We're not interested in that bit. When we cycle it, we destroy all lands. As long as we've got our commander and cards that we can cycle, we can still cycle something every turn. So we're not really affected by the lack of mana, but it will slow our opponents down to a point where we can overtake and win. And there is also another card later on where this will pair with greatly. We have Dismantling Wave. When we cycle it, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. Don't Blink from the Doctor Who set. It's an instant that until end of turn, if 1 or more creatures would enter the battlefield from exile or after being cast from exile, their owners shuffle them into their libraries instead, so it stops Cascade. And it has cycling too. Flame Blitz deals 5 damage to each planeswalker as an enchantment. Cycles for 2. Forsake the Worldly. Exile target artifact or enchantment, or cycles for 2. Everything pretty much cycles for 2. Miscalculation is a counter spell unless they pay 2. Neutralize is just a counter target spell. Both of them cycle as well. Nimble Obstructionist, 2 and a blue for a flash flying bird wizard, 3/1. If we cycle it, counter target activated or triggered ability we don't control. Radiant Judgment, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Rampaging War Mammoth, it's 5 red for an elephant that's 9/7 trampler. It cycles X2 red. When we cycle it, we can destroy up to X target artifacts. Rebuild, return all artifacts to their owner's hand. The only reason this is removal is because we can remove all of those clue tokens, treasure tokens, food tokens. There's so much treasure and they just need to go. Rescind, return target permanent to its owner's hand. Shredded Sails, we get to destroy either an artifact or deal 4 damage to target creature with flight. Slice and Dice deals 4 damage to each creature, but if we cycle it, we deal 1 damage to each creature, so we can get rid of all the low wide decks. Starstorm, X red, it'll deal X damage to each creature, again a nice little controlled board wipe. Sweltering Suns, another one that deals 3 damage to each creature. Touch of the Spirit Realm is 2 and a white enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact creature until it leaves the battlefield, or we can channel it. So we're just going to discard it, we're not going to draw off it. 1 and a white, discard this card, exile target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. It can be really good if a creature's got a lot of +1 counters on it, just to reset it, get rid of a token, or protect something. Violent Impact, destroy target artifact or land. Wipe Clean, exile target enchantment from the game. And now we need to actually just make creatures and try and get value. So Decree of Justice is XX2 white, where you create X4/4 angels. However, when we cycle it for 2 and a white, you may pay X. If you do, create X1/1 white soldier creature tokens. So if we just pay 0, the X isn't part of that cost, so we can pay as much X as we want. Drake Haven, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. When we cycle or discard a card, pay 1, make a 2/2 flying blue Drake creature token. Ominous Seas, 1 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever we draw a card, put a foreshadow counter on it. Remove 8 foreshadow counters from it. Make an 8/8 Kraken. Valiant Rescuer, 1 and a white for a human soldier, 3/1. Whenever we cycle a card for the first time each turn, make a 1/1 human soldier creature token. And then the creatures of the deck. Creator of Mysteries is the Sphinx that we can cycle for blue. If we play it, whenever we cycle or discard another card, we can scry 1. Dranith Healer, whenever we cycle another card, we can gain a life. Hollowed One is an old favourite. It costs 2 less, it's 5 mana, but it costs 2 less to cast for each card you've cycled or discarded this turn. So cycle 3 cards, it's free. Rooting Moloch. When it enters the battlefield, exile target card with cycling from your graveyard until your end of your next turn. We may play that card. Bit of recursion on some cycle cards. Survive Thundermane. Whenever you cycle a card, you may pay 2. If you do, it deals 2 damage to target creature, and we gain 2 life to get rid of a few of those small annoying creatures. Splendormare, lifelink. Whenever we cycle Splendormare, put a lifelink counter on target creature we control. And Yadaro, the Wandering Monster, a legendary creature dinosaur turtle with trample and haste. It's an 8/8, cycle for 1 and a red. When you cycle the monster, shuffle it into your library from your graveyard. If you cycled this 4 or more times this game, put it onto the battlefield from your graveyard instead. And now we get some bonus cycle cards. Angel Song is a nice prevent all combat damage that can be cycled. Astral Drift is a really good card. 2 and a white for an enchantment. When you cycle it or another card while this is on the battlefield, you may exile target creature. If you do, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. Crystalline Resonance, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. When you cycle a card, you may have this become a copy of another target permanent until your next turn, except it has this ability. Gilded Light, 1 and a white, give something Shroud till end of turn. Lay Claim, 5 blue, very expensive, but you control enchanted permanent, which could be someone else's commander. And Mage's Guile, 1 and a white, target creature can't be the target of spells or abilities this turn. Good bit of protection. Now for the payoffs of the deck. We've been throwing away a lot of cards, but why? Dranith Stinger, 1 and a red. It's a human wizard. Whenever you cycle another card, Dranith Stinger deals 1 damage to each opponent. If that's on the board early, we're going to keep flinging little pings at everyone. Flourishing Fox, single white for a 1/1. Whenever we cycle another card, put a +1 counter on this. When this gets going, it's going to be huge. Herald of the Forgotten. This is one of the biggest win cons in our deck. 6 white for a cat beast with flying. When this enters the battlefield, if we've cast it, return any number of target permanent cards with cycling abilities from your graveyard to the battlefield. If you can get this to be one of the last cards you want to play, everything in your deck will be on the battlefield that's a permanent. And as long as it survives a turn, you'll be swinging for a lot of damage. Joe Grant is the new Doctor Who card. 2 and a white. Each historic card in your hand has cycling. Not really fussed about that, but when we do cycle a card, put a +1 counter on it. Unpredictable Cyclone. This is the card that goes well with the Destroy All Lands card. It's 3 red for an enchantment. If a cycling ability of another non-land card would cause you to draw a card, instead exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a card that shares a card type with the cycled card. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost. So basically, we've blown everyone's lands up. We can cycle for free, and instead of drawing, we get a card onto the battlefield or a spell cast for free with no mana involved. And then we have Zenith Flare, 2 red/white instant. It deals X damage to any target and you gain X life, where X is the number of cards with cycling in your graveyard. That could kill a single player in one go. The mana base, as you guessed it, it's all lands that can cycle: Ash Barrens, Blasted Landscape, Desert of the Fervent, Desert of the Mindful, Desert of the True, Drifting Meadows, Forgotten Cave, Irrigated Farmland, Lonely Sandbar, Remote Island, Secluded Steppe, Smouldering Crater, and the basics are just 6 islands, 7 mountains, and 6 plains. As you can see, the deck is well under the $20 TCG budget, and actually under €20 for card market price as well. Again, basic lands do not count for the pricing, as pretty much you got hundreds of them, or if not, people can just give them to you. But that is the full deck list. What's your thoughts of the deck? How would you change it? What would you upgrade? I've seen many people say, why am I not running certain cards? But sadly, they are just a little bit out of the $20 price range. But there are some great upgrades out there. But I'd love to hear from you. But otherwise, have a great 2024. Thanks very much. See you later.